Hills. How am I pronouncing that correctly? I'm going to promote Britney to a panelist.
I'm excited to take some of the things you've taught us in class in terms of.
All right. Hey, there she is. Awesome. So we'll just give it a sec for other people to log in. If you are with us for the first time, we do this every Wednesday. It is a weekly webinar where thought leaders discuss the latest in earned media. I'm glad you're with us. Thanks for coming. I'm your host. I'm a recovering publicist and a digital marketing coach. So let us know, if you would, where you're joining us from. Let us know where you work and give us a link to your website so we know who we're talking to. The hashtag for today's session is Webinar Wednesdays. Stick around till the end. I'm going to give free access to my course on SEO for PR. It's a beginning course, introductory course on search engine optimization. So if you still don't know search engine optimization, this is your big chance. So stick around till the very end. At the end of today's discussion, your browser will actually load the link to the page where you can sign up to the SEO for PR course for free. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, we do this every week, and it's a free service to the community, but we rely on your reciprocity to get the word out there. So please take a moment, like, comment, share, help us get this out to a bigger audience. This is your community too. So the more people we get to, the more it benefits you as well. So please take a moment, like, subscribe, comment, and let's see if we can get this session trending. We have an amazing panel for you today to discuss the latest in PR, in travel PR. We're also going to talk about the World Tourism Barometer results, which are just out. They track guest arrivals, total receipts in the global travel industry, and much more. But first, I want to share some news with you. I feel like we've outgrown the name of this event. You know, I started by calling it PR Tech Wednesdays, and I feel like we've outgrown that. And I want to sort of share with you why I feel that way. I want to show you a picture here. So if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, it's a diagram that kind of expresses how we fulfill our needs sequentially. Like, you know, before we can worry about, you know, being loved, we have to make sure we have enough to eat and a place to sleep. And so I put together what I call the digital marketing hierarchy of needs. And if you sort of look at sort of the needs you have to fulfill as a digital marketer, as you move up the pyramid, right, it sort of starts with owned media, making sure you have your own house in order before you graduate to shared media, because what is there to share if you can't welcome someone to a house that's in order? And then after that, earned media, you know, which many of us, I can tell you, I started in public relations before there was owned media. So I come from a earned media first background, and then paid media after that. So, you know, these are the things we discuss. I think what's so interesting, and I'll show you one more chart. Can you guys see that graph now?
Yes.
So when you think about the different quadrants of media, owned, shared, earned, and paid, you know, I really do believe like earned is where the magic happens. It's really the leverage point, because that's where you get the visibility and credibility through neutral third parties, right? That's where you get the endorsements from the media, the endorsements from online influencers. So I really do feel like, you know, it's the most exciting of the channels. And so for that reason, I'm going to rename this session. Starting today and moving forward, We're going to change the name of today's session. Let me just stop sharing here so that you guys can see us again. Am I still sharing it? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm going to change the name from PR Tech Wednesdays to the Earned Media Hour. I think it's a better fit for what we talk about here. And so if you're signed up, you'll continue to get notifications for the webinar, but it's going to be changed from PR Tech Wednesdays to the Earned Media Hour. Welcome, Betty. Welcome, Karma. Welcome, Dana. Welcome, Diane. Welcome, Joel. Hey, let us know where you are. Let us know where you work. Let us know what your responsibility is, and give us a link to your website so we can all get a discussion going about, you know, what we're interested in, what we want to talk about. And so our panelists can focus their conversation to work for you. The reason we're talking about travel PR today is because one of our members of our community, one of our regulars, Joel Kamen, a travel PR professional out of Orlando, who works at TJM Communications. Him and I got into a discussion because he was one of the attendees here, and he put this panel together for us today. So Joel, thank you very much for that. And just a note to everyone else too who's listening, if you have an idea for a panel, for guests, I want to hear from you. So let me know. The easiest way to send me ideas for people to feature on this webinar is through Twitter, at Eric Schwartzman. That's my Twitter. And so just hit me up there and we'll get you scheduled. So let's introduce our panel today. Oh, one more thing before I do. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Twitter, if you're watching on LinkedIn, if you're watching on YouTube, you can actually participate in this discussion live with us and ask questions on screen by signing up for the Zoom video chat. And you can do that at prtechwednesdays.com. Let's introduce our panel. We have with us today three travel PR vets. They're all out of the Florida area. And the first person I want to introduce is Treva Marshall. She's owner of TJM Communications. She's former director of marketing communications for Walt Disney World, Swan, and Dolphin Resorts. And her agency represents clients in lifestyle, travel, food, beverage, and arts. We have with us Britney Guertin. She handles communications and content for Visit Sarasota County, where she focuses on communications at the intersection of earned and shared media. And Carole Munroe Jackson, or Carole Munroe rather, she's an award-winning communications and marketing content executive in the hospitality, travel, and entertainment business. At Disney, she served as Director of Public Relations and Director of Content Relations and Synergy for Walt Disney World Resort, followed by leadership roles throughout the hospitality industry. And I want to welcome them all to the Earned Media Hour. That's our new name.
Thank you.
I have plenty of questions, you guys, so I can ask away. But remember, this is a video chat. And honestly, I'd rather hear your questions. So while the chat is open for back channel, if you have a question, put it in the Q&A, come on screen and ask your question. Or if you want to add something, if somebody says something and you have a concept or idea that you want to share, let me know so I can bring you on screen so you can participate in this. We don't want this to be a one-way thing. We want this to be a community, an opportunity for us all to hang out together and compare notes and share insights. So with that said, if you're just joining, let us know in the chat where you're joining from. Let us know where you work and give us a link to your website. Thanks, Dana Sanchez, for doing that, and welcome. Okay, so I guess I'll kick it off with, I think the thing that, you know, probably most people want to hear. First is the latest edition of the World Tourism Barometer report came out last week, and it shows a near complete lockdown, that the near complete lockdown imposed in response to the pandemic led to a 98% fall in international tourist numbers in May compared to May 2019. The barometer also showed a 56% year-on-year drop in tourist arrivals between January and May, and this translated into a fall of 300 million tourists and 320 billion lost in international tourism receipts, which is obviously more than 3 times the loss of the global economic crisis of 2009. So, the news couldn't be worse. Tell us, guys, how are you dealing with it?
Go ahead, Brittany, if you want to jump in.
Thank you, Carole. Just from Visit Sarasota, it's very short, but a very glaring look. We went from having the best month ever in February to having the worst month ever in April. And so I think just that in itself can speak to that. And lots of people who lost their jobs, received pay cuts, and similarly, businesses that are not only temporarily closed, but permanently closed. Carole, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, as a PR professional, I'm also trying to look for the bright side in those numbers. The one thing about it is that the first stat that you gave really tells us about the past and doesn't say much about the present, because I think we're starting to feel good about where we are, optimistic, hopeful. So things have started to improve. More people are back to work. More people are starting to plan vacations, and that's a really good thing. But it also reminds us of the power of the travel and tourism industry. And that is an extreme positive. It's something that we all need to remember, that it's going to remind us that we're going to be here for a long time, because we really play a superior role in helping drive the U.S. economy.
I agree. I agree very much with Carole. I started my firm a month before 9/11 happened. And I remember sitting there thinking, my goodness, this couldn't possibly be a worse time. But what happened is it ended up being very transformative for me, because it showed the fortitude of our industry. So I agree very much with both my colleagues. We are certainly in very challenging times, but we've proven and we've seen ourselves rebound. And from what I'm seeing with my colleagues and the other colleagues in the industry, everyone is committed to helping this rebound. And I think it's going to be bigger, better, stronger for sure.
And what about the travel news beat? When it comes to media relations, are there fewer people to call? I mean, I can tell you that as a result of COVID-19, I would say probably about a quarter of my email list went cold. Like about, a quarter of the people that had subscribed either got laid off or not there anymore. So what are you seeing on the media relations side? Is the travel beat healthy?
I think it's very different. You have, there are different types of stories. There are obviously, the message is very different now, but there's still an opportunity for dialogue. A lot of feature stories turned into more industry update stories. Then as we progressed, people started wanting to kind of be, a little more reassured. And so the stories were starting again to kind of talk about things that are happening in destinations that's different. So I think it continues to represent what we as public relations people do. We have to make sure that the story is relevant to the time. So while things have changed, there's still things to talk about. There's a period where people need to be reassured. There was a period where people needed to be informed. And there's a period where people just kind of want to know what's ahead. So it still created an opportunity, I think, in terms of the news budget to kind of talk about things based on where we were. And that's been my interaction with journalists.
I couldn't agree more, Treva, as I think about the past few months and the trajectory that we all have been on. Yes, we've seen changes in the media landscape. Everybody is having to work a lot harder for the stories that they earn. And that's a good thing for those of us in the business, because I think media are more willing to tap into the resources that we can provide them for story ideas. So that's one thing. Another thing is making sure that we are delivering content that's authentic to the needs of consumers. While the country was in lockdown, I'll give you for instance, Hilton, the company that I'm so proud to be with now after helping celebrate its 100th anniversary last year. And then can you imagine being at the top of your game and then in this industry having the pandemic hit. But we had to remember our history. And I started to think about 5 things for PR pros to remember. And one of them is remember your history, whether it's your personal history or you're the owner of a company or you're working for a company. That history can be the key to all sorts of story ideas. And it's that thing that will also get you through. It brought you to this point and it's going to help you move into the future. So use that as a strength to move forward. One of the things we did was rely on our expertise in entertaining and hospitality and food and beverage to create a series we called Hilton at Home. And these were just tips and videos that we shared with consumers through the media on things they could do at home to better their lives while under lockdown. From our 5 Feet to Fitness program, which is a fitness program that actually happens in some of our hotels, where we have developed a program where you can have a complete workout routine in your hotel room within 5 feet. We showed readers how to do that at home. And of course, one of the best examples is what we did by releasing the recipe for the very first time in history of Hilton's DoubleTree cookie. We got more than 5 million hits on our Hilton online newsroom, the most successful story post we've ever had, and that was total earned media. Got picked up in everything from USA Today to Travel and Leisure to Ad Age and many other media, but really excited about the 5 million hits on our newsroom.
What about virtual tours? Are you guys doing any virtual tours as a way to get exposure with earned media?
So I'll speak to that. I represent a destination. So our number one tactic within the PR umbrella is press visits. And that, of course, came to a screeching halt. And I had nearly 21 visits that were postponed and or canceled. And so we had to get really creative. And so sending care packages prior, opening those with the press, and just adding to the beats. I mean, there was kind of a wave at first of things you could do virtually. Then you saw a wave of, safety, and that's still continuing. And what we've really seen in our destination is the beat turning to ways you can enjoy the outdoors while social distancing. So with that, virtual press tours. So we've been doing a lot of video collecting and asset collection so that we can prepare packages and we can hold those virtual conversations, but still make it immersive and experiential.
Anyone want to add anything?
I just want to add, just hearing Carole's story, hearing Britney's story, it shows that we as public relations people have a really significant job. There's a story to be told, and we just have to figure out how to tell that story. What's the medium? What's the timing, etc. But I think it just reasserts the value of public relations, because you have a trusted brand like Hilton, but boy, you need those brains, those PR brains to push that out. You have an incredible destination like Sarasota, which happens to be one of my favorites, but you need that platform to have people to be able to experience it. But you need that public relations mindset and that nucleus from public relations to really help keep you connected to how to communicate to people. So I think it's a kudos to the work that we do, and it shows how significant our work is as public relations professionals.
Anyone attending doing a virtual tour? Anyone with a hospitality brand or a destination doing virtual tours? If so, let us know. I'll bring you on. You can tell us about it. Let me ask you for a second about KPIs. For so long, originally, when I first got into PR, a long time ago, we were judged by basically, the amount of impressions we got. That was enough, Oh, you got this national story, you got this national placement, how fantastic. But there's been more and more pressure, obviously, in recent, even pre-pandemic, to, drive bottom line numbers. And I don't know in your sector if that transfers into, hotel nights or bookings or that type of thing. But now that we're in this environment where we are still in a lockdown in many areas, and there is still sort of a chill over pretty much all brick and mortar, what sort of KPIs are you guys being asked to focus on?
Well, I can kick this off. My team kind of laughs at me because I call it collecting coins. Think about, Mario. It's like every single coin matters so much right now. So whether it's, as Treva mentioned earlier, sometimes that feature story becomes just a short sentence in a brief, but that counts. And, other than that, for a destination right now, it's really about supporting our local businesses. So a lot of what we're doing isn't necessarily getting the word out, but it's teaching our businesses how to do PR better and how to be more resourceful with what they have. So I think the idea of that mutually beneficial relationship, it's great that we're promoting the destination, but it takes this entire area to really lift us as high as we need to go during a time where you're just trying to keep top of mind. So that's been a big thing for us. And of course, social media. We operate social media under our PR umbrella. And so engagement and being able to have that dialogue and, as you mentioned, inform, inspire, engage, share fun things to do. Each of those opportunities is really what it's all about. It's kind of going back to the basics for us.
Brittany, what does that look like in terms of going one-on-one with businesses, probably small, medium, large, to try to help them communicate when and so some people are sort of taking a stance based on how they react, based on their political affiliation. Is that complicating things for you? How are you dealing with that?
Well, I think Carole said it earlier. We're all in this together and there's a lot of positive opportunities. And so together as a community, we've realized we have to focus on the good. So whether it's, like the food bank, for instance, there was a huge push to stock the food bank because there were tons of kids in our community that needed lunches now that schools were out. And so even just being able to get together and share that story. But honestly, Eric, it's a phone call, it's an email. We do tourism universities and we've hosted a few of those where we do exactly what we're doing now. We present to our partners over Zoom. But we have a Facebook partner page. So we see something that someone's doing, we just share it real quick and try to do everything we can to share our knowledge. I think really our PR hat has been really given, even just connecting with local media. Here's the local media list. I know you need to get the word out. Maybe in the past we would have led them to, make the relationships, but now it's like, we know you need this, here you go.
And I want to pick up on that word you just said. We know you need this. I think the pandemic has helped us all become more focused on what the priorities are that truly matter in life, and that is human life. So it's been super easy for us to prioritize around the safety of our team members and our guests and our community. One of the things that Hilton did in partnership with American Express was to provide up to 1 million hotel rooms free of charge for our frontline medical workers, doctors and nurses and EMTs and so forth, who were working these 24-hour shifts and didn't have the time to get home to change, and also wanted to make sure that they were separate from their families at times when they were dealing with COVID patients. So that's just one example. And then that turned into us also supporting World Central Kitchen, Jose Andres, fantastic charity that served communities across the United States and the Caribbean. So when you're focused on the safety and well-being of your guests and your team members, it's really easy to prioritize the work, the stories that matter the most. The media were right along with us because that was their concern as well, even in their media houses. So we all have been very focused on those types of stories. Now we're starting to see that media are reaching out to us about travel planning. And that's a really good thing. Reminding those folks who are at home that now's a good time to catch up on some things to get yourself ready to travel when that time comes. Renewing your passport, signing up for the frequent, signing up for loyalty programs, for example, as well as TSA sign-up. So those are just some examples of things that people can do right now. Start researching where you want to go, and just always be inspired to plan that next trip.
So you all three of you are in the business of relationships, building relationships with people. Mm-hmm. And now we're in this environment where everything's virtual, all business is virtual. For 10 years, I traveled the country teaching a course called the Social Media Boot Camp for the Public Relations Society of America. And it was so bizarre because I'd get on a plane with a laptop, go into a room with people, we'd all open our laptops, and we'd go through all these exercises. And it was really expensive, and the internet was always really bad. And I always thought to myself, man, this is ridiculous. We should just be doing this online. But the truth is, people didn't want to do it online. They wanted to get on a plane and take a trip and go to a destination and meet with people. And so for so many years, pre-pandemic, really online training was the red-headed stepchild of professional development. It was sort of like, the ghetto. No one wanted to do that. But now it's all there is. So you guys are all professionals on building relationships with people. Now you're forced to work through these channels. Talk to us a little bit about how it's changing the way you build relationships and how you think it might continue, how it might stick and change the meetings that happen in person versus the ones that happen virtually moving forward, even after there is a vaccine.
Well, I'm happy to start on that one. For us at TJM Communications, our focus has always been on genuine, authentic relationships. Relationships with our clients, relationships with our media, those things were always important. So one day we sat down from our virtual locations, and I was speaking with my team, and we thought, before we go out and pitch anything to any of our journalists, we're going to check in on them. We're going to just send them a note and just say, you hear from us all the time. We're knocking on your door, but this time we're checking on you. And I think that the important part to remember, because we have a job that involves so much interactions with others, we can't lose sight of the humanistic aspect of what we do. And so before we started pitching, before we started cultivating messages again, before we did anything else, we just said, hope you're doing okay. So I think that's how we continue to move forward. We continue to have a measure of authenticity to the work we do, human nature to what we do. And I think the pandemic has forced us to take a step back and to look at our human nature and the connections we have to each other as humans. So for us, the next step is continuing to be genuine, continuing to be human, to continue to do the work we do, but remember that people also are human. Just making that connection first, I think is the best way. When you tap into your human capacities first, your professional ones just explode from there. So I try my very best and my team just not to lose sight of the fact that it's important to just have some sort of a human, genuine connection with people as well.
And then if I could add to that, Eric, we're trying to, at Hilton, meet people where they are. You have some folks who have actually been traveling throughout the pandemic. I'm probably one of them. I've actually been on 5 flights and in 2 hotels in the midst of the pandemic, traveled safely. But what we're doing as an industry, and specifically for Hilton, is offering services that show how we have elevated the level of cleanliness and sanitation for both meetings and events. That you talked about virtual meetings, and the reality is that people want to be together. So we recently introduced Hilton Event Ready with Clean Stay. The Clean Stay part is something we introduced a couple of months ago with Lysol and Mayo Clinic, Hilton Clean Stay, which is all about how we have elevated our cleaning in all of our hotels with those 2 powerful health partners. Then taking that a step farther, looking at the meeting and event space, we're offering Hilton Event Ready with Clean Stay, where we have a checklist that we are ensuring that we're going through and making sure that those high touch points when you have a group setting are given priority attention. We're looking at how we can creatively help meetings and event planners with social distancing. Here in Florida, we have the benefit of gorgeous outdoor weather year round, and everybody loves to be at a reception outdoors. That may not be accessible in all parts of the country, but many parts of the country absolutely throughout most of the year. Utilizing your buildings differently so that you create the social distancing that's needed, you have the cleaning and the disinfection that people are looking for to ensure that they have a safe and healthy experience with you. And then you also try other ways to offer a combo platter. of some folks may not be able to make it there live. Could they also join virtually? So we're being creative to meet our meeting and events planners where they are so that they can continue doing the things that they love to do and delivering great service to their clients.
And I'll be short, Eric, and just add, just going back to the relationships that we built prior to COVID. So a lot of the writers we've hosted in the past year are freelancers because that's really the nature of travel writing these days. It's very rare to find someone that works for one publication. And so social media and engaging with them, and just like we want the coverage, they're really eager to have good content. So just celebrating those little wins together. I know that one gal that I follow was in 5 TV segments in one day. So just responding to her story and, giving her a hand clap and just saying, you are getting it done, girl. Like, just showing each other that support in these moments. It's what Treva said. I mean, being authentic, but they're real relationships. It's not just, on paper. And to me, that has been a big win because we've gotten several pieces of coverage in one publication, which, if readers are avid readers, now they're really growing brand awareness. They're reading about us multiple times in one touch point. So just really, again, just being their friend on Facebook, being their friend on Instagram, it goes a long way.
Carole, it's really interesting to hear what you guys are doing at Hilton to sort of restore traveler confidence. And I wonder if, Britney, you guys are looking at that too. Is there anything sort of you're communicating to businesses, and Treva, any clients you're working with? I mean, to what extent are you being asked to help try and rebuild traveler confidence?
Well, Visit Sarasota has partnered with a destination just south of us, and we've been conducting consumer sentiment. We're on our 3rd or 4th wave now, and that will continue until we see fit. But that gives us a good pulse of where people are. And of course, as the spikes in Florida grew, that we saw a nice increase in consumer sentiment. Unfortunately, it's lowered, but we're going to get back up there, as Carole mentioned. So we use that to guide our messaging. Everything has been digital. Even our PR stories, we want them to be online articles. We want them to end up in a social post because you can edit those very quickly if needed. And other than that, for us, it's also important to measure local sentiment. If you're bringing visitors to a destination and your residents aren't super happy or don't feel safe and comfortable in their own backyard, that can create a lot of problems. We are a 501c6, so we're funded by tourist development tax dollars, but we also bring in private revenue. So we kind of, we joke that, who is the most important stakeholder today? Because it can change within a minute.
Good point, Brittany. One of our legacy clients is the Walt Disney World Swan and Dolphin Resort. And the resort has over 2,200 rooms, over 300,000 square feet of meeting space. So it is a huge meeting center. And so one of the things that we've been able to do is to shift and really work closely with our clients in a lot of their meeting planner communication, where we're answering those very same questions, as Brittany mentioned, those very same questions about what's happening, what the procedures are. They have an array of cleanliness procedures and things that planners want to know and need to know, and it's important to communicate that. So in addition to the media relations conversation, we've also aligned with our clients and helped them significantly when it comes to client relations as well.
Are you guys close to the Seminole Hard Rock?
Is that the one in Tampa?
The one in Florida, in Hollywood, Florida.
Okay.
There are a few. Yeah, there are a few in town. We're all north of those. About.
Okay. Because, I'm remembering that had just opened prior to the pandemic. I mean, they had just announced their grand opening, like maybe a month before. They built tower in the shape of a guitar.
Of a guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, in the city just north of us, we had, I think it was Margaritaville open. I mean, not even a month ago. So I think it just goes back to the message that Carole started with. You in any crisis, you have to be resilient. You have to adapt. And those are the stories that really transcend because, people are getting innovative. They're adapting. And ultimately us as travelers will adapt. Us as marketers will adapt. And ultimately, some of us will not make it, unfortunately. But I think that's where, at least COVID has really like Treva said, made us stop and think about what really matters. What is the main message? When people come here, you know, we want them to be responsible, but we want them to have fun and be able to get that reprieve that everybody just so wants right now.
I have to tell a story. It was a few years ago. I was down at the Hard Rock Hotel in Hollywood, Florida. I was teaching a social media boot camp for their staff there. And the night before I got in, the casino manager pulls me aside and he says, "Do you want a ticket to go see Dolly Parton?" Now, I am not a Dolly Parton fan. I've never seen Dolly Parton before, and I don't even really know any of her songs other than Jolene. But I figured, well, it's free. Okay, I'll go. And he gives me this ticket. I go in there. I'm like the only one without a walker in the whole stadium. And it's a killer seat, like 18 rows back. And I figure I'll just see a couple songs and I'll leave, right? Because I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. It was one of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life. She's amazing.
She's amazing.
She plays every instrument, and I was so entertained. I was blown away. So, anyways, that's my Hard Rock Hotel. This is before they had the new tower, but that's my Hard Rock Hotel story.
Never been there, but I can vouch for Dolly Parton. She is amazing and one of the most prolific songwriters in the music industry.
So let's talk about a serious subject here, because I think we would be remiss not to mention what's happening with race in America right now. And you know, Trevor, you had written an op-ed that ran in the Orlando Sentinel about this sort of metaphor of the mask. You know, we're wearing these masks, but racism is a mask that we need to take off and we need to discard. So talk to us a little bit about your editorial that you wrote for the Sentinel.
Thank you. It was a really personal, deeply personal opportunity where a colleague and I really collaborated on that very same conversation. And what we really wanted to convey in the article was that, you know, as we discussed, that, yeah, while we're talking about wearing the masks and protecting ourselves and protecting human life, we need to rip that mask off in order to really save our humanity. And I think that it's a critical time for us to take a look at the barriers that have existed and the things that we've done wrong. And just as the pandemic has opened up the opportunity for us to be transparent about things that we know exist, racism is also one of those very same things. And so it's been a joy to talk about that, to talk about the fact that we're having to unmask. But what's been more joyful is the fact that people are unmasking and people are realizing that maybe I wasn't racist, but maybe it was just a little inaction on my part, or maybe I was a little indifferent. So we're at a critical time now to just reconnect and to grow and abound as a community. And I think as a travel professional, that's even more so the case, because travel is the platform that helps create experiences for people and bring people together anyway. So I think that it's a monumental time for us. It's a good time for us. It's a transformative time for us. And it's a time for us to take a look at how we can be better. And I think that's where we're headed at this point. So thank you for referencing the article. It was a real pleasure to be able to share that sentiment with my colleagues and friends.
You know, Joel, if you can find a link, maybe post a link to the chat if you listen to this. Anyone want to add anything?
You know, I'll just add, I think when you travel, you know, and we together as presenters kind of talked to this yesterday, think about it just simply. You know, when you visit someone else's home, you're going to be more polite, you're going to be more kind, you're going to be more open to embracing their ways. I think there's a funny Seinfeld episode about, like, the one guy always wants everyone to take their shoes off, and, you know, everyone thinks that's kind of weird, but they do it because you're in someone else's home. And I think when you travel, you know, you visit other destinations, which are other people's homes and experiences. You know, you try different food, you're exposed to new things. And I think that certainly builds tolerance and understanding. And I hope that as people travel, they do open up to other experiences that they may not, and they bring that home with them. And they really think it through about how we can all as a community come together.
I think one of the strengths of this country is its diversity. And the more we can focus on that as a strength in our personal lives, at our companies, in our communities, we're all going to be stronger as a result. We've got a lot of lessons to learn from our history. It's been interesting seeing these two pandemics capture our attention all at once. The conversations have been rich and deep across races. We've all learned a lot. And the fact that we've all been kind of, many of us have had the privilege of being at home where we could read more, read books, do the research, put in the work. I'm seeing a lot of that being shared across friends and being shared professionally. And it's really encouraging for the industry. I think it's absolutely going to make us all stronger if we all continue to do our part to be good listeners, to ask questions and not be embarrassed to ask questions of friends who you're trying to understand them better culturally. I'd rather have someone ask me a question than not, because that could be an assumption that, wow, it's not important enough. So the more we share and talk about things, the better we're going to be as a society.
And if I may add one more thing to that's an amazing point, because I think the travel industry, we're in a unique position to really be the torchbearers for this transition, because we bring people into our home, because we specialize in hospitality. So I think when we all get back and continue to get to our day-to-day work and travel and hospitality, we would also remember that inclusivity is important, and that we can be the platform for the change in that, because we really are the place where people go to connect. And in one of our earlier conversations, we talked about football games. And while I truly admit, full disclosure, I know nothing about sports, the one thing that I always love about sports is that it brings people together. People will sit next to each other. They don't know the person. They connect with them. They laugh with them. They share with them. And then they go off into their lives. And you didn't really realize that was a form of human connection. And that's the way I see travel. Here we have these wonderful destinations out there, and you have an opportunity to bring people together of all sorts and to be welcoming to them all. So I think that the travel industry is in a unique position to rebound and to also help us grow in some of the areas where we've needed a little help as a country.
And if I can add, Eric, just a little anecdote from my Disney days. When we would survey, and Disney does such a great job of surveying its guests to learn about them and learn how they can make their experiences even more rich and joyful for them. The thing that always rose to the top in surveys about Epcot were the interactions between the guests and our cast members at the time who represented the various countries at Epcot. Always consistently high marks, because people love interacting with other cultures and learning from them. That was just something I remembered, and it's pertinent to the conversation about inclusivity.
It is.
And travel, and the importance of travel.
So, for the government of Israel, travel is actually the centerpiece of their international relations program. They have this subsidized trip called Birthright, where if you're Jewish, they'll pay to take you to Israel, and they'll take you around and show you a good time in hopes that you'll build a bond with the culture and the land. I just put a link in there. Another thing that's interesting, I was thinking about when you were talking, there's a fantastic podcast I listened to called On Being with Krista Tippett. And she basically talks to, her mission is to try to build a more loving planet. And so she talks to people about that, how to build a more loving planet. And she's phenomenal. And she did this one episode, which was basically about a white supremacist named Derek Black, who was in line to become a KKK person. He went to college at New College in Florida. And he
Sarasota.
Shabbat dinner. And he started going to Shabbat dinner with the Orthodox Jew. And they never gave him a hard sell on Judaism or anything, but they became friends, just breaking bread. And he's no longer a white supremacist. So there really is something to be said about bringing people together from different cultures, particularly over bread,
Absolutely. Conrad Hilton truly believed, there was a quote, and he would say it oftentimes in interviews, that travel is a roadway to world peace. Because the more people get out there and travel the world, you start to see how very alike we are. And then you also appreciate all the differences that make the world such a wonderfully diverse place.
And goes back to our article about unmasking. When we travel, we unmask. We take off our shoes. We ditch our pants and we put on shorts and we do tank tops. We unmask. We allow ourselves to really be our true selves. And so I echo that. It's such a great opportunity.
And just to add an anecdote with Sarasota, we had a very prestigious opportunity. There were no civil rights trail stops, the US Civil Rights Trail. There were no stops in Florida until 2019, and Sarasota's Newtown community is officially the southernmost site on that US Civil Rights Trail. And it's the story of peaceful protests to desegregate beaches. And when you think about, I think almost everyone probably thinks of a beach vacation with their family. The beach, probably lots of beaches, but it's crazy to think of a time when 7,000 miles of coast were not available to everybody. And so that's a story that just in the past 2 years has been uncovered and has been shared. And it's been a huge opportunity for us to connect with visitors that will resonate with that story. And I was a part of a car caravan where we reenacted the caravan to the beach. And there were original protests or people who had participated in the original protests in that caravan. And just that moment in itself, I learned a lot that day and I listened a lot. And but it's a very special story that's unique to Sarasota's history, but that opens the door to our destination to people that may not have considered coming here before. And Treva, TJM has been a firm that we've worked with. So they've been great about helping us share that story. But that's just another example of something that, it's a beach vacation, but, nearly 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that wasn't a reality for everybody. So.
Folks, you're running out of time for questions. Please let us give some questions or give some comments. We want to hear what you think too. So just post anything in the Q&A and I'll bring you on screen and share with us what's on your mind. Let us know what you think. Is there, and actually a different question. There's all this talk about fake news all the time now. They're constantly debunking, false information that's being put out there about COVID. I wonder if any false information is negatively impacting travel. And if so, what you're doing about it.
If I may, I'd like to use red tide as an example. So we had an unfortunate outbreak of a bad case of red tide in 2018. And 2 years later in 2020, we're still dealing with those images being used in articles. So, a 2020 article will be published about whether red tide is bad, whether it's happening, but the main image is a photo from 2018. And we've even had to work with Google to help clean up our destination's presence online because so many photos. So I don't know that that's fake news per se, but the average consumer is not disconcerting enough to realize that that photo was taken in 2018, 2 years ago, or that image that's being pulled up on Google was, again, it was a real photo. It wasn't inaccurate, but it's no longer relevant to what's happening. And so for us, it's very important. And I even with COVID think about the airlines and the airports. I've worked very closely with the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, which have done many, many things to ensure the safety of their travelers. But even among our peers here locally, there's talk about this and rumors about this, and it's just an inadequate knowledge base. Unfortunately, we have so much information at our fingertips, but people aren't as informed as they think they are. So I think not so much fake news, but really, I truly do think we are in this age of misinformation. And so as PR people, not only are we trying to tell inspiring stories and to connect, but we're trying to show what's real and show what's actually happening, especially as a destination.
What lessons are you as public relations people taking away from this experience? What life and what professional lessons?
I think there are a number of things, and one of them is something that I champion a lot. I believe strongly, and when I started this agency, I made the commitment that this agency would always be more than just a firm that worked to make noise, that we would really be strategic partners. And we have been busier in the last few months than ever because we have been able to align with our clients and be a part of their strategy team. And so I think that one of the most important things to learn about scenarios like this, these types of crises, that it is very, very important to be as much of a strategist as you are, an executor. Just as you build stories and tell stories, you've got to be able to understand how to strategize and weave that story in the context of your brand and what your brand needs to thrive. So I think that it really issues a call to public relations people to really focus on the strategic aspect of the work we do and how to make sure you don't lose sight of that. And I believe that's been a saving grace for many professionals to be able to really position themselves as a strategist, because it's times like these that really, really show your worth and your value and your impact on that bottom line. Being a strategist is certainly more important than anything, at least being a strategist first. That's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Treva. Being a destination, we're already planning for fiscal year 21's kind of already planned, which tentative due to COVID. But, we're looking so far in the future. And, going into this fiscal year, I had 3 PR firms on retainer, one in Germany, one in the UK, and one that covered domestic. They were the first firms and vendors, unfortunately, to be let go of when our budgets were slashed. So this robust plan that involved so many great things that I had, probably spent a month or two really refining went out the door. And on my to-do list for 2 weeks, because it was so daunting, was new plan for fiscal year 20. What is our PR plan going to be? And as Treva said, we essentially came up with, all right, what's going to be our react? I'm one person now versus a team of maybe 10 PR people that we did have. So it became very clear, well, what can I actually do and what can I do well? So with reactive, this is how we're going to handle it. With proactive, okay, we're only going to focus on a meetings project where we get coverage about being a meetings destination, again, with Treva, because that's something that will help us. We need to really get group business back in. So that strategy is so important, and just being nimble with that strategy. And just the last little piece is really listening and keeping our ear out. We have 600 partners, so 600 local businesses that work with us. There's a lot of really special people and special things happening. So I'm reading every social post. I'm reading every local lifestyle publication, every newspaper article, talking to our partners as often as possible to try to find those nuggets that we can turn into something that's, going to grow some legs.
What about owned media? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to wrap it up on that question. I started out talking about things to remember, and as I was preparing for this, I jotted down five things, and I hope these are positive and inspiring. I already talked about remember your history, because you've got great stories from your history that you can draw upon. You've got great photography that can help remind your clients of where they want to be in the future, instill that wanderlust of travel. Remembering that everybody is in the same boat. This is a fantastic time for partnerships. And that was something that Britney alluded to. Remember that COVID-19 is not our only challenge and not the only opportunity to tell some interesting stories. We touched upon that. We talked about race relations, but there's also sustainability that everybody's thinking about and trying to look for ways to solve. And there are fantastic stories in the travel industry that speak to the importance of sustainability. We were fortunate to do a series that's airing on Netflix right now with Zac Efron, Down to Earth with Zac Efron. Hope you guys check it out. But a key theme is sustainability. No one knew how well that show was going to do, but it's been trending at #1 and in the top 5. But also remember that what we're selling is very powerful and intoxicating. Travel is about happiness, joy, education, culture, and experiences that lead to lifelong memories. So there's a lot of content there that are at our fingertips for fantastic earned media. And then remember to just remember and write about some of your own experiences as a traveler. When you think there is, no content out there, there are our own experiences that we can draw from. And social media and podcasts have shown the power of personal storytelling. So those are just, 5 things to remember that we all have access to, no matter the budget. And I hope that our PR professionals who've joined us will find some encouragement in that.
Well, we have a question. I am
Yay.
going to bring Carmen on screen. She is with the Nazu Organic Spa Skincare. Carmen, can you come on screen? Give her a sec to fix her hair. While she's figuring that out, the final question I wanted to ask you guys was, are you spending more time on owned media, on content marketing and on your website and your podcast and your own content than earned media as a result of the pandemic?
I think it's still been a bit of a balance of both, depending upon the clients. Some clients went dark for a while on social media during the pandemic, just out of sensitivity for what was happening. But I think that as this is all a part of our platform for communications today, that it's a little bit of both. I mean, we've certainly, developed content as well as pitched out traditional stories. So I've really seen a little bit of both, just depending upon what the message is and what the timing is.
Yeah, and I'm in a unique position because I manage the PR, but I do also manage the social program and the content, the website. So I do have to allocate time to each effectively. But again, I think it comes back to your audience and listening and what are they engaging with? So we've had a lot of success with social media right now because we have really pretty beach pictures and sounds of the water. And so we're able to post these things that just give people their 5-minute break that they need. And that's resonating very well. And then we can also educate them about responsibly, visiting, but doing it responsibly, local information. And then just to add, I mean, there was a point in time where we had to pause all paid advertising because it was the right thing to do and because it was necessary. And so in that moment, we're saying to ourselves, okay, well, while we have this time and we're not building digital ads and we're not, readjusting the social every 5 minutes, let's go get some videos of our partners and the safety measures and the masks and use and things. So just being very strategic with our time and also thinking about, what we can do. And like I said, what we can do well, it's not the time to learn. I mean, if you don't know technology, you might want to learn how to do a Zoom video, but, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel right now. We're trying to be creative and trying to be nimble, but we're trying to use the skills that we have to do it well.
Really quickly, because we're almost out of time, Carmen wasn't able to come on screen, but her question is, what are destination spa resorts doing to bring people to come back to spas, to make sure customers feel at ease, for those customers well enough to travel?
Carole, do you want? You're probably
sure. Want to make sure I'm unmuted. Yes, I mean, safety, cleanliness, and safety. That is the thing that they have to assure their clients that they are doing and focusing on maniacally. That especially in a spa environment, that's going to be the key. And then also building a relationship with their clients where they are. It's all about when you're ready, we'll be here for you, but until you're ready, here's some things that we want to share with you that you can do at home. Show that you care, show that it's not just about that transaction, but it's about building a long-term relationship. And those are some of the things that they can talk to their clients about, that to expand on health and wellness, because spa takes you to that space of also talking about overall health. And when you think about the pandemic, that also includes mental health. So, Britney talked about pictures of beaches. People have used that as a calming source. So we can't discount the mental health, the physical health, and safety around cleanliness.
Well, that is pretty much all the time we have. I want to thank the three of you for taking time to do this. Also, a special thanks to Joel for setting this up. Thank you for that. I'm glad we got a chance to do that. If you're participating in the session in Zoom, after we end, you're going to be directed to a page where you can get free access to my SEO for PR course. And that'll teach you everything you need to know about search engine optimization for web content. If you're watching on Periscope, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, we rely on your reciprocity to keep this community alive. So please like, share, comment, help us get it out there, help us build a bigger community to benefit everyone. If you have an idea for a guest, or you'd like to be a guest, or you want to put a panel together, you can reach me on Twitter at Eric Schwartzman. Also, if you want access to any of the other content that I produce, I have two other podcasts. One is on B2B lead generation, another is on media relations, and then I have a blog where I publish long form content, how to sort of beginner content around digital marketing. And you can sign up for that at ericschwartzman.com/blog. This has been great. Thanks for joining us on the last PR Tech Wednesday and the first Earned Media Hour. And let's just go around and give everyone a chance to say where we can get in, where can we reach you and get in touch with you if we want to follow up with you.
Sure. I'll go first. Well, you can reach me at carole.munroe@hilton.com. That's my personal email address. And I'm sharing that since we are talking amongst PR professionals. I'm sure we're probably all in very similar associations. I'm also on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me there. And also check out the Hilton online newsroom at newsroom.hilton.com.
I just shared my email in the chat because my last name is fun to spell, but visit sarasota.com. We do have a press room. My contact information is on that press room. So visit sarasota.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, I'm most active on Instagram. So, if you want to share stories and support each other there, and feel free to connect.
Same for us. TJMcommunications.com is our website, but I can be reached directly at Treva at TJM Communications. And same thing, LinkedIn, Facebook, we're on all the platforms as well, and would love to have some more dialogue. And Eric, I want to take a moment to tell you thank you as well, because it's wonderful to be able to have these kinds of conversations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
An honor to host. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Eric.
And we will see you all on the next Earned Media Hour.
Thank you.
Great hour. Great questions. Thanks, everybody. Bye.